Hey, welcome to Real Talk, where I give real answers to real questions from real worship leaders. If you are a real worship leader with a real question and you want a real answer, head right here and submit your question for a future episode. Got some good questions this week? Let's talk about it. I am a self-taught pianist. I've been playing piano at my church for about 7 years. Recently, I've started gathering the confidence to also be singing and leading songs in church with the worship team. The problem I'm having is choosing a key to use for a song. Usually when I start leading a song, the other singers say that the key is too low for them to sing along. Majority of the singers are female. When I let them pick a key which I should use to lead the song, I usually find it too high for my male voice. My question is, how do I go about choosing a key that would be comfortable to sing for all the singers and the audience? Okay, a couple things here. First of all, we need an objective standard that we can use where we say, this is a singable key for people. And I know people don't like this conversation, so if you don't like this conversation, tune out, but I'm trying to give some practical advice here. We need a range that we can say, this is what is considered a singable key for most people. And that range is, as I've talked about a million times before, from C to C. So if you can fit the melody of the song within the range of C to C, then it should be singable for the vast majority, pretty much everybody in your congregation, because that's only an octave. So whether you're a trained singer or not a trained singer, most people have an octave from C to C in their vocal range. If you need help on how to put your songs in that singable key, I'll link a video down below where I go into more depth about that whole process. I don't have time to talk about that right now. But that's the first thing, okay? We need a range that we're shooting for so we can tell our team. First, well, I guess even before that, we need to tell our team, if they don't know, that the purpose of our singing in our corporate gathering is not for us to sound good. It's not for us to be able to sing the best that we can. By that I mean as the vocal leader. The purpose of our singing in our corporate gatherings is Colossians 3:16, to teach and admonish one another. People should be singing along with us. It is not just a solo person singing, and hey, if they sound really good, then worship is happening. If they don't sound as good, then worship isn't happening. I would rather sound 10% worse, but have everybody in my congregation singing along with me, than I would sound 10% better and people can't sing along. So if your team doesn't know that, then you need to explain that to them, because that is really the root of the solution, is that we all need to have a common aim that we're aiming toward. And if the common goal is, hey, every vocalist on the team needs to sound as good as they can possibly sound, then that's not going to happen. You're not going to unify around that vision, because people have different ranges in which they sound the best in. And we're not aiming for the best, we're aiming for teaching and admonishing one another. When I say we're not aiming for the best, you know what I mean. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that we shouldn't sound good. So that's the first thing. Explain it to your team. The second thing is put it in that singable key from C to C. You can't always fit it in that range, but that's the range that we should be shooting for. Now, when it comes to the intricacies of who is leading the song on your actual worship team, we're not talking about the congregation here. What your female vocalists need to realize is that you, as the male vocalist, are leading the song. They should be singing harmony. I don't know how many vocalists you have on your team. Not everybody needs to be singing harmony. But if I have a female vocalist singing with me, probably 90% of the time they're singing harmony. They aren't singing melody with me, unless we're like swapping off like verses or something for who's leading. And so if your vocalists, your female vocalists, aren't singing harmony, then that's a skill that they need to learn. They need to learn how to sing harmony. And I say that just because I remember, like, back in the day when I was leading worship, we had literally 8 vocalists on our worship team or something. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, not like a choir, but like 8 vocalists. Each of them had their own microphone, and they all sang melody. Maybe a couple of them sang harmony, and it was just like this wall of sound. So if you find that happening on your team, there's a couple things that you can do. You can start a rotation on your team and say, we're not going to have 8 people singing at one time. We're going to give you a week off here and there where you guys can swap in and out so you don't have to lead all the time. I'm not sure if that's the case for your team or not, so I won't go into that super in depth, but something to think about as well. And then the same goes for whenever a female is leading a song. I don't really care if it's a male or a female leading the song. I still try to keep that range of the song within C to C the best that I can. And maybe for a particular vocalist, I'll stretch it a little bit, but I'm not going to stretch it like super far outside of that range, which you shouldn't have to, by the way. You shouldn't have to stretch it super far outside. C to C, all right? That's like everybody has a C to C in their range. You have an octave in your range. So I'm not going to stretch it super far outside of that. I also am probably not going to pick a song that has like this huge range. Some of these modern worship songs have like 2 octaves, 2.5 octaves sometimes, I feel like, especially if you're jumping an octave in the song. So you also have to think about your song choice, I guess, because if your team can't sing it, then your congregation probably can't sing it either. But back to what I was saying about female vocalists. When they're singing, when they're leading a song, if you're the male vocalist and you're singing along and you can't sing with them, then you should be singing the harmony. And that way you can kind of fudge the range a little bit. So if they're a little bit too high for you, you can take the lower harmony. If they're a little bit too low for you, you take the upper harmony. So those are the things that you should be thinking about. Explain to your team what the purpose of corporate singing is. Number 2, put your songs from C to C. Number 3, have people sing harmony. Number 4, after you've considered the congregational key, prioritize the person who's leading the song, their vocal range. What would you suggest I do for a new person coming into praise and worship who is young and has never sang in church? She has performed since she was young. She has never had any classes or anything, but this is the first time being on a worship team. She now knows we are not performing, and she has learned other things. But the thing that bugs me most is that she will not hold the microphone still in one place. With every sentence, she moves the microphone away from her mouth. So I put the microphone on a stand so she won't be holding it in her hand, thinking if the microphone is stationary, but nope. She still moves away from it at every pause. Sometimes when she goes to sing or stop singing, she's already moved it away from her mouth and you can't hear her. Also, it causes her to be singing strong 1 minute and the next minute she fades out. I've been trying to teach her this concept for 3 months now. I understand she's a newcomer, but this is the one thing that bugs me. She is just not getting it. I feel like I should just drop it and live with the issue, but I don't know how hard this is to understand. I've been leading worship for 15 to 20 years. I've never had this problem with anyone. I've recorded our sessions and tried to bring out the problem. What suggestions do you have for this situation? I feel like you have been like watching my videos and you anticipated everything that I was going to say about this question because you're like, well, I tried to put it as I'm reading these questions, I'm thinking in my mind like, okay, well, you could try this, you could try this, and you like anticipated all my objections, which I love. But it's like the first thing I thought of, well, maybe you put it on a microphone stand. That way she can't move it away from her mouth and it's more about her body position. You're like, I already tried that. What else did you say? You were like, I recorded our sessions and tried to show it to her. I always talk about that. There was something else in there too that I always talk about. So you got me at a loss here because I'm like, you've already tried everything. It sounds to me like you have her leading the songs or something. Maybe don't have her lead songs until she can fix this problem. And not as like a punishment, but if somebody's new to my worship team, I'm probably not having them lead a song right away. Anyways, you said you've been working on it for 3 months. I assume she hasn't been a part of the worship team for that long. If somebody's new to leading worship, usually I'll have them sing backup for a little while until they get the mechanics of just what it means to be on stage leading people in worship together before I actually have them lead a song. So I don't know if I'm having this person lead a song and then that problem is minimized as they're just singing background vocals because they're not the main one leading and people are trying to follow along. So I think maybe that's the first thing I would do, and maybe that's hard now that you've already had her leading songs, but just something to think about in the future at least maybe. I think you just have to be explicit with her. I know you said you've already talked to her a lot about it, but what I've found in my own ministry is that sometimes I think that I've addressed a problem very clearly, but what has happened is I've just thought about it in my head over and over again, and I don't know if this is what's going on with you. It's just something that I've done in my ministry is like, I've thought about the problem a lot in my head, and I basically told myself about the problem a million times, and then I've only told the person who has the problem, I've only told them like once, and I think in my head like, man, I've been so clear on this, but in reality, I've tricked myself into thinking I've been really clear on it, and I've only talked about it to them once, and I've talked about it to myself a million times. So if this is something that you've noticed at like practice after practice and you never really said anything, and then you've kind of said things a couple times, maybe just be explicit with her. And here, let me grab a microphone real quick. I don't know where this microphone, I think this microphone is from the 30s or something. It's an old EV. I don't know. It was just the one I found. But I would go to her after rehearsal and say, hey, can I show you something about using a microphone, all right? And I really need you to understand this because it's kind of a problem when you're singing right now, and it's actually going to hinder your worship leading because you won't be able to lead people as well because they can't hear you. And it's really a simple fix, all right? I'm going to show it to you, and I'm not trying to be patronizing at all. I just want you to understand this, all right? This is, and this depends on what kind of relationship. Usually I have relationships with people on my team where I could talk to them in this way and it not be like me coming at them. But I would be like, all right, this is not magic, all right? If we want people to hear us, then we need to have it up to our mouth, all right? When you are singing, it needs to be at your mouth, always. All right, it's not going to pick you up if you're over here. It's not going to pick you up if it's on a stand and it's over here. It needs to be at your mouth. This is like a flashlight. Whatever you point it at gets light on it. If it's over here, your voice is not being illuminated. It needs to be pointed right at your mouth, right here at your mouth, all right, at all times. And that way people can hear you. So let's practice that because I've noticed during rehearsal and whenever we're leading on Sunday that sometimes you're like, you're over here or you start singing and it's not up to your mouth yet and you were the word in the beginning, all right? Just hear that. And I would even bring up the recordings again if you need to, but just walk them through that. I do that with people on my worship team as well, and I just talk through the problems, and if you do it frequently enough, then it's not like Spencer's picking on me. It's just like, oh, this is what we work on. I'm working with my keyboard player to lead some songs, and we constantly have conversations like that. And he's not like mad at me because he's like, oh, I can't believe Spencer's on me again about whatever it is. But we just have the sort of relationship where we can have that conversation. So just go to her and show her that. And then after you've talked to her about it, this is something that I talk a lot about on my channel, keep bringing it up like over and over and over again. Do not let it go. Once you've brought it up once, keep bringing it up. Don't think I've talked to her about this once and then she didn't really do it the next rehearsal, so I'll just let it go. Maybe she'll eventually figure it out. She's not going to figure it out on her own, right? Keep bringing it up. Say, hey, that thing that we talked about after rehearsal last time? You did it again there. I might even not to embarrass her, and once again, this depends on the sort of relationship you have with her and the relationship you have with your team. But I might even say, I might even stop a song and be like, hey, I just noticed once again that you didn't bring it up to your mouth. So, you do that a couple times. You stop a song during rehearsal for the point of improving, not to make a spectacle of it, but because you actually want her to notice. I guarantee she's going to pick up on that. When you have the pressure of the entire team, we had to stop the entire song because you didn't have the microphone up to your mouth. So try those things and see if that helps out. Now, if you need time to actually do that during your rehearsal, then you have to have a plan for your rehearsal. And a lot of people don't have plans for their worship rehearsals, so their worship rehearsals just go on and on and on, and they never have time to work on specific things. And that's why I put together the worship rehearsal blueprint. I'll link it down in the description below. It is the 5 pieces to a perfect worship rehearsal that allows you to lead your team well musically so that they're prepared to lead on Sunday so that you can fix people not having the microphone in front of their mouth. But it also lets you lead your team well spiritually by having a devotional time and relationally so that they grow closer to each other. So if you're interested in that, if you don't have a plan for your worship rehearsals, check that out down in the description below. Other than that, until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.